She's the only one who can save the galaxy. But she's stuck in a language barrier with an alien queen. Will she rise to the challenge, or will the universe crumble? Nexus Prime hung in the void like a jewel forged from starlight. Its spires, sleek and silver, glowed with the light of 1,000 worlds, a beacon of unity for the Interplanetary Alliance. But today, as the station's vast council chamber buzzed with voices, that unity felt like a distant dream. Delegates from countless species, scaled, feathered, crystalline, packed the tiered seats, their murmurs rising into a cacophony. At the center of it all, a holographic map of a newly discovered nebula pulsed with promise and peril, its swirling clouds rich with minerals that could fuel empires or spark wars. Counselor Zoran, a towering figure with skin like polished obsidian, slammed a fist on the podium. Enough! His voice cut through the noise like a blade. This nebula belongs to no one yet. We must negotiate, not squabble like hatchlings. Across the chamber, Counselor the Lyra, her luminous eyes calm but firm, raised a hand. Zoran is right. War over resources will tear the Alliance apart. We need reason, not rage. But reason was in short supply. Factions had already formed, their alliances drawn along old grudges and new greed. The air crackled with tension, and every delegate knew one wrong word could ignite a galactic firestorm. At the edge of the chamber, the Varkan delegation watched like predators. Their leader, Vren Klisser, leaned back in his seat, his slit-pupilled eyes glinting. His scales shimmered faintly, a subtle display of confidence. The nebula's wealth is too great to share, he hissed to his aide, voice low but sharp. Let them bicker. Chaos serves us best. Then, a ripple of anticipation swept through the crowd. The massive doors of the chamber's end parted, and Empress Kaelith of the Zorathian Empire stepped forward. Her presence was electric. Her flowing robes, woven with threads that seemed to capture starlight, shimmered with every step. Her face, serene yet commanding, carried the weight of centuries. The Zorathians, an ancient civilization, were legends in the galaxy, their wisdom a cornerstone of the Alliance's fragile peace. If anyone could calm this storm, it was her. Kaelith raised her hands, and the chamber fell silent. She spoke, her voice a melodic cascade of syllables that danced like wind through forgotten ruins. The words were beautiful, haunting, but utterly incomprehensible. Delegates exchanged confused glances. Translators, their devices humming frantically, shook their heads. The Zorathian language, a relic of a bygone era, was a mystery to them all. To some, Kaelith's speech sounded like poetry. To others, it was gibberish. What is she saying? A feathered delegate squawked, frustration evident. Is this a trick? Another growled, his claws tapping nervously. Kaelith's expression didn't waver, but her eyes betrayed a flicker of urgency. She spoke again, slower this time, her hands tracing intricate gestures as if pleading for understanding. The translators' devices beeped in defeat, their screens flashing error messages. The chamber erupted in murmurs, suspicion growing like a weed. Vren Klisser seized the moment. He rose, his voice smooth but laced with venom. Perhaps the Empress's words are not meant to be understood, he said, loud enough for all to hear. What if this is a threat? A claim to the nebula, cloaked in riddles? Can we trust a message no one can verify? The accusation hung in the air, heavy and dangerous. Delegates whispered, their distrust spreading. Counselor Zoran's eyes narrowed, but he said nothing. The Lyra stepped forward, her voice steady. We must not jump to conclusions. Empress Kaelith has guided us through crises before. She deserves our patience. Patience? Vren sneered, his scales flaring briefly. While she speaks in tongues and the nebula slips from our grasp, the Zorathians have always hoarded their secrets. Who's to say this isn't one of them? Kaelith's gaze locked on Vren, unflinching, but she didn't respond. Instead, she turned to her aide, a shadowy figure named Solarian, and whispered something. Solarian's eyes, deep and unreadable, scanned the chamber before he nodded and slipped away. The Empress resumed speaking, her voice now tinged with a quiet desperation, but the words remained a locked vault. The chamber descended into chaos. Delegates shouted over each other, some demanding action, others pleading for calm. Zoran pounded the podium again, but his authority faltered. The Lyra tried to mediate, but her words were drowned out. The alliance, built on centuries of fragile cooperation, teetered on the edge of collapse. In a quiet corner of Nexus Prime, far from the chaos, a young aide named Lyra pored over the Council's archives. Her fingers danced across a holographic interface, searching for a solution. Kaelith's language wasn't just rare, it was practically extinct. The Zorathians had retreated from galactic affairs centuries ago, their tongue fading into obscurity. Lyra's search seemed hopeless until a single entry caught her eye, a paper titled Deciphering the Zorathian Lexicon, written by an obscure human linguist named Dr. Elias Varn. Lyra's heart raced. She pulled up the file. The paper was dense, filled with charts of ancient symbols and theories about contextual meanings. It was brilliant but unnoticed, buried in the academic backwaters of Earth. Varn, it seemed, had spent years studying Zorathian texts unearthed in a forgotten dig. If anyone could understand Kaelith, it was him. She hesitated, glancing at the chamber's live feed. The delegates were now voting on a motion to confront the Zorathians, pushed by Vrin's relentless whispers. Time was running out. Lyra sent a priority message to the council, her hands trembling. Found a potential translator. Human. Dr. Elias Varn. Earth. Back in the chamber, the vote was moments away when Lyra burst through the doors, her face flushed. "Wait," she shouted, her voice cutting through the din. Every head turned. Zoran raised an eyebrow, annoyed but curious. The Lyra leaned forward, hope flickering in her eyes. Even Vrin paused, his scales dimming slightly. "We found someone," Lyra said, catching her breath. "A human. He might be able to translate the Empress's message." A murmur rippled through the crowd. A human? The species was respected, but often underestimated, their short history in the Alliance overshadowed by older civilizations. Vrin's eyes narrowed, but he said nothing. Kaelith, standing tall at the chamber's center, tilted her head, her gaze piercing the distance between stars. "Who is this human?" Zoran demanded. "Lida Sualowit." Dr. Elias Varn. He's a linguist. On Earth. On Earth, in a quiet corner of a sprawling university, Dr. Elias Varn was lost in a world of his own. The archive room, tucked beneath the linguistics department, smelled of old paper and dust. Shelves groaned under the weight of ancient texts, their pages yellowed but precious. Elias sat at a cluttered desk, his glasses slipping down his nose as he pored over a Zorathian manuscript. Its symbols, elegant and maddeningly complex, glowed faintly under his scanner. To anyone else, they were gibberish. To Elias, they were a puzzle begging to be solved. He mumbled to himself, jotting notes in a worn journal. If this glyph shifts meaning based on tone, then the whole sentence could. His voice trailed off, drowned by the hum of the scanner. At 35, Elias was a brilliant linguist, but a terrible conversationalist. He preferred the company of dead languages to living people. Social gatherings made him fidget. Ancient texts made his heart race. The Zorathian language, nearly extinct and impossibly intricate, was his obsession, a lifelong dream he chased in this dim, forgotten room. Outside, the campus buzzed with students, their laughter echoing through the spring air. Elias barely noticed. His world was here, in the flicker of symbols that held secrets of a distant civilization. He was so engrossed he didn't hear the door creak open or the heavy footsteps approaching. "Dr. Varn," a gruff voice cut through the silence. Elias jumped, nearly knocking over his coffee. He spun around to find a man in a sleek military uniform standing in the doorway. The stranger was broad-shouldered, with close-cropped hair and a scar tracing his jaw. His eyes, sharp and no-nonsense, sized Elias up like a hawk eyeing a mouse. Yes." Elias stammered, pushing up his glasses. "Can I help you?" "Captain Torin Kade, Interplanetary Alliance, the man said, stepping forward. His boots clicked on the stone floor, and the faint hum of a communicator on his wrist filled the room. I need you to come with me. Now. Elias blinked, his brain struggling to catch up. Come with you? Where? I'm in the middle of something. He gestured vaguely at the manuscript, as if ancient symbols could explain his confusion. Torin's lips twitched, not quite a smile. Yeah, I can see that. But this is bigger than your book's document. The galaxy's about to go up in flames, and you're the only one who can stop it. Elias's mouth opened, then closed. He wasn't used to people barging into his life, let alone talking about galactic crises. I think you've got the wrong guy, he said, half laughing. I'm just a linguist. Exactly, Torin said, leaning against a shelf. It creaked under his weight. You're the linguist, the only human who can read Zorathian. Empress Kaelith has got a message that could stop a war, but no one can understand her. Except, apparently, you. Elias's heart skipped a beat. Zorathian. The word alone sent a thrill through him, but the rest of Torin's words landed like a punch. Empress Kaelith? The Zorathian Empress? She's real. He'd read about her in dusty records, a figure of legend who guided the galaxy through ancient crises. The idea that she needed him was absurd. Very real, Torin said, his tone dry. And very desperate. Nexus Prime's a powder keg right now. The Alliance is one vote away from war over some shiny nebula. And Kaelith's message is our last shot at peace. But her language is a mess of riddles, and you're the only one with the key. Elias's mind raced. He glanced at his manuscript, its symbols now seeming to pulse with new urgency. The Zorathian language was his life's work, a puzzle he'd spent years decoding. But translating for an empress? In front of the galaxy's most powerful leaders? That was a far cry from his quiet archive. I don't do politics, he said, his voice shaky. I'm not some diplomat. I'd probably make things worse. Torin's eyes softened, just for a moment. He stepped closer, his voice lowering. Listen, document. I've seen what war does. Lost friends in a border skirmish a few years back. Good people, gone because some hotheads couldn't talk it out. If Kaelith's message can stop that from happening again, to millions of people, maybe Earth itself, you're the guy who can make it happen. You really gonna sit here and let the galaxy burn? Elias swallowed hard. Torin's words hit like a tidal wave, stirring something deep inside him. He thought of his ancestor, Dr. Mira Varn, whose journals had first sparked his love for Zorathian. She'd worked with a Zorathian envoy during Earth's early space days, her notes filled with awe at their culture. What would she say if he turned away now? Still, doubt gnawed at him. What if I mess it up, he asked, almost whispering. What if I can't translate it right? Torin grinned, a spark of mischief in his eyes. Then we're all screwed, and I'll have to fly us out of there real fast. But I've read your file, Varn. You're a nerd, but you're a damn good one. You crack languages no one else could touch. This is your shot to do something that matters. Elias stared at his desk, the manuscript staring back. The Zorathian symbols seemed to whisper, daring him to step up. He thought of the galaxy, planets he'd never seen, species he'd only read about, teetering on the edge of war. And then he thought of the language itself, the puzzle of a lifetime, waiting for him to solve it. He took a deep breath and looked at Torin. Okay, he said, his voice steadier than he felt. I'll do it. The stars blurred past the viewport as the Alliance shuttle streaked through hyperspace. Inside, Elias Varn clutched his journal, his knuckles white. The hum of the engines vibrated through the cabin, a constant reminder that he was light years from his dusty archive. Across from him, Captain Torin Kade lounged in the pilot's seat, his hands dancing over the controls with a confidence that bordered on reckless. The ship, a sleek Zorathian model lent by the Alliance, was a marvel of alien tech, smooth curves, glowing panels, and a faint shimmer to its hull. Elias felt like he'd stepped into one of his manuscripts. Relax, Doc, Torin said, glancing back with a grin. You look like you're about to translate your own obituary. Elias managed a weak smile. This ship, it's Zorathian, right? I've only read about their tech. Never thought I'd be inside one. Yep, Torin said, patting the console like an old friend. Handles like a dream, once you figure out the controls. Had to improvise a bit, Earth style. These Zorathians don't mess around with their engineering. Elias nodded, his mind already drifting to the task ahead. Empress Kaelith's message. The Zorathian language. His life's work, now tied to the fate of the galaxy. He opened his journal, skimming notes on Zorathian syntax. Each symbol could shift meaning based on tone, context, even the speaker's intent. It was less a language and more a labyrinth of ideas. He'd spent years decoding fragments. Now he had to unravel a living empress's words under pressure. The shuttle lurched as it dropped out of hyperspace. Elias gripped his seat, peering out the viewport. The planet Zorath filled the view, a breathtaking tapestry of silver and violet. Crystal spires rose from its surface, glinting like captured comets against a sky streaked with auroras. Ancient ruins dotted the landscape, their stonework glowing faintly with embedded runes. It was a world of beauty and mystery, a living archive of a civilization older than Earth's oldest cities. "Holy," Elias whispered, his academic heart racing. Torin chuckled. "Yeah, it's a stunner. Hold tight, document landing's going to be a bit bumpy." Torin wasn't kidding. The shuttle swooped toward a landing platform nestled among the spires, its descent a wild dance of precision and bravado. Elias's stomach churned, but Torin's hands were steady, guiding the ship with a mix of skill and sheer nerve. The platform, carved from translucent stone, shimmered as they touched down. A crowd of Zorathians waited, their robes flowing like liquid starlight. At their center stood Empress Kaelith, her presence as commanding as it had been on Nexus Prime. Elias's throat went dry. He fumbled with his journal as Torin powered down the shuttle. "That's her, isn't it?" he asked, voice barely above a whisper. "Yep," Torin said, unbuckling his harness. "Time to shine. Document don't trip on your way out." The hatch opened, and a wave of cool, ozone-scented air hit Elias. He stepped onto the platform, Torin at his side, feeling like a fish in a sea of giants. The Zorathians were tall, their skin a faint silver that caught the light. Kaelith approached, her eyes deep and unreadable like twin galaxies. She spoke, her voice a cascade of melodic syllables that sent a shiver down Elias's spine. The words were Zorathian, raw and unfiltered, and for a moment he was a kid again, deciphering his first text. Hi," Elias said, then winced. "Hi, to an empress?" He cleared his throat, clutching his journal like a shield. "I'm Dr. Elias Varn. I'm here to translate." Kaelith tilted her head, a faint smile playing on her lips. She gestured to a nearby spire, its entrance framed by glowing runes. Torin gave Elias a nudge, and they followed her inside, joined by a Zorathian aide, Salarian, the same shadowy figure from Nexus Prime. The spire's interior was a marvel. Walls pulsed with soft light, and holographic displays flickered with images of stars and ancient battles. Elias's eyes darted everywhere, his mind cataloging details like a starving scholar. They entered a chamber where a massive crystal table stood, its surface etched with Zorathian script. Kaelith sat, motioning for Elias to join her. Salarian stood nearby, silent but watchful. Torin leaned against a wall, his hand resting casually on his sidearm, eyes scanning the room. Kaelith spoke again, her words slow and deliberate. Elias's heart pounded as he listened, scribbling notes. The language was even more complex in person, each phrase layered with cultural references and historical weight. He caught fragments, something about the heart of the stars and a shadow waking, but the full meaning slipped through his fingers like sand. "This is harder than I thought," Elias admitted, pushing up his glasses. "Your language, it's not just words. It's like every syllable carries a story." Kaelith's smile widened, and she responded in Zorathian. Elias frowned, parsing her words. "You said, stories are the roots of truth?" he ventured. She nodded, a spark of approval in her eyes. Salarian stepped forward, his voice low and precise. "The Empress trusts you, human. Her message is vital. It speaks of a threat older than our spires, one that could consume all worlds." Elias's stomach tightened. He dove back into the translation, his scanner humming as it cross-referenced his notes. Hours passed, the chamber quiet except for the scratch of his pen and Kaelith's patient voice. Slowly, pieces of the message emerged. Kaelith was warning of the Voidborn, a sentient entity sealed at the galaxy's core millennia ago. It was stirring now, its influence creeping into the nebula's resources, threatening to break free. Only a united galaxy could reinforce the seal and stop it. Elias's head spun. The Voidborn, he murmured, looking at Kaelith. You're saying this thing could destroy everything? And the nebula's tied to it? Kaelith nodded, her expression grave. She spoke again, and Elias caught a phrase he hadn't heard before. He tried to translate it aloud. The sky swallows the foolish. He paused, realizing his mistake as Kaelith's eyes twinkled with amusement. Torin snorted from a corner. What? You telling her we're all doomed to be sky food? Elias flushed. No, I meant the sky guides the wise. It's a proverb, I think. The tones are tricky. He looked at Kaelith, mortified. Sorry, Empress. I'm still getting the hang of this. To his surprise, Kaelith laughed, a soft, musical sound that eased the tension. She responded, and Elias translated carefully. She says, even a misstep reveals the path. She's not mad. He exhaled, grateful for her patience. The mood shifted as Kaelith leaned forward, her voice tinged with curiosity. She asked something new, and Elias's brow furrowed as he deciphered it. You want to know about Earth? About humans? Kaelith nodded, her eyes bright. Elias hesitated, then smiled. Well, we're stubborn. We fight, we mess up, but we keep going. Like, we invented this thing called pizza. It's food, but it's also kind of philosophy. Everyone argues about how to make it, but we all love it. Torin chuckled. You're selling the galaxy on pizza, Doc? Bold move. Kaelith's smile returned, and she spoke again, her words warm. Elias translated. She says humans sound like her people, bound by passion, not perfection. The moment felt like a bridge, a spark of connection across worlds. But the warmth faded as Solarian interrupted, his tone urgent. The message must be complete, Dr. Varn. Time grows short. The Voidborn's shadow stirs, and the alliance falters. Elias nodded, his focus sharpening. He worked late into the Zorathian night, the spire's light dimming around him. The message was nearly clear, but gaps remained, phrases tied to Zorathian history he didn't fully grasp. As he scribbled a final note, a distant rumble shook the spire. Torin straightened, his hand on his weapon. What the hell was that? Torin asked, eyes narrowing. Solarian's gaze darted to Kaelith, who stood, her face tense. She spoke rapidly, and Elias struggled to keep up. She says something's wrong. The archives, they're under attack. Torin grabbed Elias's arm. Time to move. Document sounds like trouble found us. The Zorathian spire trembled again, its crystal walls pulsing with an angry red glow. Elias Varn stumbled as he followed Empress Kaelith and Captain Torin Kade through a winding corridor, his journal clutched tightly against his chest. The air was thick with the scent of ozone and something sharper, like burnt circuitry. Behind them, Advisor Solarian moved with eerie calm, his silver eyes scanning the shadows. The distant rumble of explosions echoed, each one closer than the last. What's happening? Elias asked, his voice high with panic. Who's attacking the archives? Kaelith's face was a mask of resolve, but her eyes betrayed worry. She spoke in rapid Zorathian, her words a melodic blur. Elias struggled to keep up, catching fragments. Intruders' sacred texts betrayal. His heart sank. The archives held Zorathian history, including the texts he'd used to learn their language. If they were destroyed, so was his chance to finish translating Kaelith's message. Torin grabbed Elias's arm, pulling him along. No time for linguistics. Document move your ass. Someone's trying to blow this place to hell. They rounded a corner into a vast chamber, its walls lined with glowing runes that flickered like dying stars. At its center, a holographic display showed the archives below, a labyrinth of tunnels and chambers filled with ancient manuscripts. Red alerts flashed across the hologram, marking breaches in the lower levels. Elias's stomach churned. Whoever was attacking knew exactly where to hit. Solarian pointed to the hologram, his voice low and urgent. The intruders are Varkan. They seek to disrupt the Empress's message. We must protect the archives at all costs. Varkan, Torin growled, his hand tightening on his sidearm. Those slimy bastards. Figures they'd pull something like this. Elias's mind raced. Vren Klisser, the Varkan leader, had sown distrust at Nexus Prime. Now his people were here, sabotaging Kaelith's efforts. But why? He glanced at his journal, where he'd scribbled parts of Kaelith's message about the Voidborn, a sentient threat tied to the nebula. Did the Varkans know what she was warning about? Kaelith led them to a hidden passage, its entrance concealed behind a rune-covered panel. The corridor beyond was narrow, its walls etched with Zorathian symbols that glowed faintly. Elias's eyes widened as he recognized them, protective sigils designed to ward off intruders. These runes, he muttered, they're like a security system. If we can activate them. Focus, Doc, Torin snapped, but his tone softened. You're onto something. Can you turn those into a trap? Elias nodded, his scholar's brain kicking into gear. Maybe. If I can find the right sequence. He ran his fingers over the runes, his scanner humming as it cross-referenced his notes. The symbols were a puzzle, just like the language, and puzzles were his specialty. Before he could finish, a metallic screech echoed down the corridor. Shadows moved at the far end. Varkan operatives, their scales glinting like oil slicks. They were fast, their claws scraping the walls as they charged. Torin drew his weapon, a sleek plasma pistol, and fired a warning shot. The blast scorched the floor, slowing the Varkans, but not stopping them. Run! Torin shouted, shoving Elias toward a side passage. Kaelith and Solarian followed, their robes billowing as they moved with surprising speed. Elias's lungs burned, but he kept pace, his mind racing through rune combinations. The passage twisted into a maze of glowing symbols, each turn more disorienting than the last. The Varkans' hisses grew louder, their claws closer. Elias now, Torin yelled, firing another shot. A Varkan yelped as the blast grazed its arm, but more kept coming. Elias skidded to a halt at a rune-covered archway, his scanner beeping frantically. He scanned the symbols, his fingers trembling. Got it, he shouted, pressing a sequence of runes in rapid succession. The archway flared with light, and a low hum filled the air. The runes pulsed, forming a shimmering barrier, just as the Varkans lunged. The lead Varkan hit the barrier and screamed, its scales sizzling as it collapsed. The others retreated, hissing in frustration. Elias exhaled, his knees weak. It worked, he gasped. The runes, they're like a force field. Torin clapped him on the back, grinning. Nice one, Document. You're not just a nerd, you're a badass nerd. Kaelith's eyes met Elias's, her expression a mix of gratitude and urgency. She spoke, and Elias translated, still catching his breath. She says the archives are safe for now, but the Varkans have what they came for. They stole part of my notes. His voice faltered as he realized his bag felt lighter. A side pocket was torn open, his spare tablet gone. Solarian's face darkened. The Varkans are cunning, he said. They took fragments of your translation. They will twist the Empress's words to sow chaos. Elias's heart sank. He'd only translated parts of Kaelith's message, warnings about the Voidborn and the need for unity. If the Varkans distorted those fragments, they could make it sound like Kaelith was threatening to seize the nebula. This is bad, he muttered. They'll use my work against her. Torin cursed under his breath. We need to get a Nexus Prime and set the record straight. But first, we got to get out of here. Kaelith led them to a secure chamber deep within the spire, its walls reinforced with crystal. The air was calmer here, but the tension lingered. Solarian closed the door, his movements deliberate. He turned to Elias, his voice barely above a whisper. There's more you must know, Dr. Varn. The Voidborn is no mere threat. It was created. Elias blinked, his mind struggling to process. Created? By who? Solarian hesitated, glancing at Kaelith. She nodded, her expression heavy with the weight of centuries. Solarian continued. Long ago, in a war that scarred the stars, the Zorathians forged the Voidborn as a weapon. It was meant to protect us, but it grew beyond our control. We sealed it away at great cost. If this truth reaches the Alliance, our credibility will shatter. Elias's mouth went dry. The Voidborn wasn't just a monster. It was a Zorathian mistake, a secret that could turn the galaxy against Kaelith. He looked at her, seeing not just an empress, but a leader carrying the burden of her people's past. "Why tell me this?" he asked. Kaelith spoke, her words slow and deliberate. Elias translated, his voice unsteady. "She says, truth is the only path to trust. You must decide what to share for the galaxy's sake." Torin whistled softly. "No pressure. Document. You're holding the galaxy's dirty laundry now." Elias's head spun. He'd come to translate a message, not to guard secrets that could start or stop a war. Before he could respond, a Zorathian aide burst into the chamber, her face pale. She spoke rapidly, and Kaelith's eyes widened. Elias caught the gist. The Varkans. Nexus Prime, lies spreading. Solarian translated fully. The Varkans have leaked their twisted version of your notes. The Alliance believes Kaelith seeks to claim the nebula for Zorath. Nexus Prime is in uproar. Elias's stomach dropped. The Varkans had moved fast, turning his stolen work into a weapon. The galaxy was slipping closer to war, and his translation, his one chance to fix this, was incomplete. He looked at Kaelith, her resolve unshaken, and felt a spark of determination. He wasn't just a linguist anymore. He was the galaxy's last hope to hear the truth. "We need to get to Nexus Prime," Elias said, his voice steadier than he felt. "I have to finish the translation and stop this." Torin nodded, already checking his weapon. "That's the spirit. Document. Let's go kick some Varkan ass and save the universe." Captain Torin Kade sprawled in the pilot's seat, his boots propped on the console. He glanced back at Elias, his usual grin absent. "You've been quiet. Document. That brain of yours spinning too fast." Elias sighed, pushing up his glasses. "It's not just spinning, Torin. It's stuck. If I tell the Alliance the Zorathians made the Voidborn, it could unite everyone against a common threat. But it might also destroy their trust in Kaelith. They'll think she's hiding more secrets." Torin nodded, his scar catching the light. "And if you don't tell them, the Varkans' lies about her wanting the nebula keep spreading. War's still on the table. Damned if you do, damned if you don't." Elias's gaze drifted to the viewport, where stars streaked past like fleeting hopes. The Varkans had already leaked a twisted version of his stolen notes, painting Kaelith as a power-hungry tyrant. Nexus Prime was in chaos, the Alliance teetering on the edge of a vote for war. His translation, Kaelith's full message, was the only chance to set things right. But the truth about the Voidborn could either save the galaxy or fracture it beyond repair. He closed his journal, his mind wandering to his ancestor, Dr. Varn. Her journals had sparked his love for Zorathian, filled with sketches of their runes and tales of their wisdom. She'd met a Zorathian envoy during Earth's early space days, a moment that shaped her life. What would she do with a secret like this? Elias wished he could ask her, but all he had were her words, locked away in his university archive. The shuttle's console beeped, pulling Elias from his thoughts. Torin checked the display, his brow furrowing. "We're an hour from Nexus Prime. Better figure out your play. Document. The council's not going to wait." Elias nodded, but his chest tightened. He stood and paced the cabin, his footsteps muffled by the smooth floor. The dilemma gnawed at him. Revealing the Voidborn's origin could rally the Alliance. Fear of a shared enemy might outweigh their greed for the nebula. But it would expose the Zorathian shame, maybe even turn Kaelith into a scapegoat. Hiding the truth might preserve her authority, letting her lead the Alliance to peace, but it would mean lying by omission. Could he live with that? He stopped pacing and leaned against a wall, his eyes falling on a small storage panel. It was slightly ajar, revealing a glint of something inside. Curious, he opened it and found a data chip, its surface etched with Zorathian runes. His heart skipped a beat. Torin, look at this. Torin swiveled in his seat. What's that? Some Zorathian souvenir. Elias plugged the chip into his scanner, its screen flickering to life. A holographic document appeared, written in a mix of Zorathian and early human script. His breath caught as he read the title. Notes on First Contact, Dr. Varn. It's my ancestors' work, he whispered. How did this get here? Torin raised an eyebrow. Kaelith's people must have kept it. Guess they knew you were coming. Elias scrolled through the document, his eyes wide. Myra's notes described her meeting with a Zorathian envoy named the Lin, who shared stories of their culture's triumphs and failures. One entry stood out. The Lin spoke of a great mistake, a weapon they forged and sealed away. He said truth, even painful truth, is the foundation of trust between worlds. I believe him. Earth must learn from their courage. Elias's throat tightened. Mira had faced a similar moment, choosing to trust the Zorathians despite their flaws. Her words echoed in his mind, a beacon through his doubt. She believed in honesty, in building bridges through shared vulnerability. He closed the hologram, his resolve hardening. Find something good? Torin asked, watching him closely. Yeah, Elias said, his voice steady. Mira, my ancestor, she worked with the Zorathians when Earth was just starting out. She wrote about their honesty, even when it hurt. I think I have to tell the truth. All of it. Torin leaned back, a faint smile returning. Gutsy call, document. You sure? Can make things messy. Elias nodded, clutching the data chip. It will be messy. But if I hide this, the Varkan's lies win. The Alliance needs to know about the Voidborn, where it came from, what it can do. Trust is the only way to stop this war. Torin chuckled, shaking his head. You're not the nervous nerd I dragged out of that archive anymore, are you? All right, I've got your back. Let's go tell the galaxy the truth and hope they don't shoot the messenger. Elias managed a small laugh, but his mind was already racing ahead to Nexus Prime. He sat back down, opening his journal to refine Kaelith's translation. The message was nearly complete, a warning about the Voidborn's awakening and a call for unity to reinforce its seal. Now, it would include the Zorathians' role in its creation, a painful truth, but one Elias believed could forge a stronger alliance. He thought of Kaelith, her trust in him, and felt a pang of guilt. Would she understand his choice? The shuttle's engines shifted, signaling their approach to Nexus Prime. Elias looked at Torin, who gave him a reassuring nod. Ready to change the galaxy, Doc? Elias took a deep breath, his fingers tightening around his journal. Ready, he said, the word carrying a weight he'd never felt before. Elias Varn stood at the center of the Alliance Council chamber, his heart pounding like a war drum. The air buzzed with tension, the councilors' voices a cacophony of shouts and accusations. Vryn Klisser, the Varkan leader, loomed at a podium, his scales glinting as he waved a holographic display of Elias's stolen notes. Empress Kaelith seeks to seize the nebula. Vryn hissed, his voice sharp as a blade. Her words, twisted by this human, prove her treachery. Elias gripped his journal, his palms sweaty. The counselors, hundreds of species, their forms ranging from feathered to crystalline, leaned forward, their eyes boring into him. Captain Torin Kade stood nearby, his hand resting on his sidearm, a silent pillar of support. Empress Kaelith sat at the guest dais, her silver gaze steady, trusting Elias to deliver her truth. He decided to reveal everything: the Voidborn, its Zorathian origins, the call for unity. Now, he just had to survive the room. Counselor Zoran, a hulking figure with obsidian skin, banged a gavel. Silence. Dr. Varn, you claim to have Kaelith's true message. Speak, human, or this council votes for war. Elias swallowed, his throat dry. He stepped to the podium, his voice shaky at first. Vryn Klisser's version of my notes is a lie. He stole fragments and twisted them to frame Empress Kaelith. I've translated her full message, and it's not about conquest. It's about survival. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Vryn's eyes narrowed, but Elias pressed on, his voice gaining strength. Kaelith warns of the Voidborn, a sentient entity sealed at the galaxy's core. It's waking now, feeding on the nebula's energy. If we don't unite, it'll destroy us all. He paused, his heart racing. And the Zorathians created it. Long ago, as a weapon. They sealed it at great cost, and now they're asking for our help to keep it contained. The chamber erupted. Counselors shouted, some in outrage, others in disbelief. A feathered delegate screeched. The Zorathians made this monster? Why should we trust them? Varn seized the moment, his voice dripping with venom. See, the human admits Kaelith's guilt. Her people are a threat, and this war is their fault. Elias's stomach twisted, but he stood his ground. He glanced at Kaelith, who nodded subtly, her face calm despite the chaos. She rose, her robes shimmering, and activated a device on the dais. A massive hologram flickered to life above the chamber, showing a war-torn galaxy from millennia past. Zorathian ships battled a shadowy force, the Voidborn, its form a writhing mass of darkness. The hologram shifted to Zorathian cities in ruins, their people sacrificing everything to seal the entity away. Kaelith spoke, her Zorathian words melodic and grave. Elias translated, his voice clear over the fading din. She says, we bear the shame of our past, but also its lessons. We hid the Voidborn's origin to protect our alliance, but now we lay bare our truth. Join us, not as subjects, but as equals, to save our shared stars. The counselors fell silent, the hologram's images lingering in the air. Elias seized the opening, pulling up his scanner's database. Varn claims Kaelith's message is a lie, but he's the one deceiving you. I cross-referenced ancient texts from your own species, Zoran's people, Thalira's, even the Varkans. They all mention a sealed threat at the galaxy's core. Kaelith's warning matches your own histories. Varn's stolen notes don't. He projected the texts, their symbols glowing alongside his translations. A murmur of agreement spread. Counselor the Lyra, her voice melodic, stood. The human speaks truth. My people's archives confirm a shadow sealed long ago. Kaelith's honesty humbles us. Varn hissed, his claws digging into his podium. Lies. The human is Kaelith's pawn, twisting words to save her. Torin snorted, leaning toward Elias. This guy's got a one-track mind, huh? Keep going, document. You've got him. Elias's confidence surged. He faced Varn directly, his voice steady. If I'm a pawn, why do your own texts mention the Voidborn? Why did you steal my notes instead of asking for the truth? You're not protecting the Alliance. You're pushing it to war for your own gain. The chamber buzzed with whispers. Zoran's eyes narrowed as he studied Varn, then turned to Elias. Your evidence is compelling, Dr. Varn. But can we trust Kaelith to lead us against this Voidborn, knowing her people's role? Kaelith spoke again, and Elias translated, his words ringing with conviction. She says, we do not lead alone. The Alliance is our strength. Let us rebuild the seal together, as partners, and prove our trust through action. The Lyra nodded, her expression resolute. I moved to support Kaelith's plan. The Voidborn is our true enemy, not each other. Zoran hesitated, his pragmatic gaze shifting between Elias, Kaelith, and Varn. Finally, he raised a hand. I second the motion. The Alliance will stand with Zorath, not out of blind trust, but because Dr. Varn's words and Kaelith's sacrifice have earned it. Cheers and protests clashed, but the tide had turned. Counselors voted, their holographic ballots glowing green for peace. Varn's face twisted in fury, but his allies shrank back, their support crumbling. Elias exhaled, his knees weak. They'd done it. War was averted for now. Torin clapped him on the shoulder, grinning. Not bad, document. You just stare down a galaxy in one. Kaelith approached, her eyes warm with gratitude. She spoke softly, and Elias smiled as he translated. She says, your courage has woven our worlds together. The stars thank you, Elias Varn. Elias blushed, scratching his neck. Just doing my job, Empress. Elias Varn stood at the edge of a bustling command center, his journal tucked under his arm. The air hummed with purpose as Alliance delegates from countless species coordinated their efforts. Engineers pored over holographic schematics, their voices a mix of clicks, hums, and melodic tones. Zorathian technicians, their silver skin catching the light, worked alongside humans, calibrating devices to reinforce the Voidborn's ancient seal. Elias watched, a quiet pride swelling in his chest. The galaxy, once on the brink of war, was united, not perfectly, but enough to face the looming threat. Counselor the Lyra approached, her flowing robes brushing the floor. "Dr. Varn," she said, her voice warm, "your translations have become our bridge. The Alliance has named you its chief linguistic envoy. Your work will preserve the Zorathian language and ensure our unity." Elias blinked, his face heating. "Chief envoy, I'm just a linguist. I didn't expect this." Thalira's eyes twinkled. "You are more than you know." Your courage turned words into peace. "Accept this honor. It is earned." Before Elias could protest, Captain Torin Kade sauntered over, his grin wide. "Chief envoy, huh? Look at you, Doc, going from dusty books to Galactic VIP. Gonna need a bigger journal for all the autographs." Elias laughed, shaking his head. "I'd rather stick to translating than signing anything." "This is a lot." Torin clapped him on the shoulder. "You've earned it. Hell, you saved the galaxy. That's worth a fancy title or two." The command center's activity paused as Empress Kaelith entered, her presence drawing every eye. She moved with quiet grace, her robes shimmering like starlight. She stopped before Elias, her silver gaze soft but commanding. "Dr. Varn," she said in Zorathian, her words a melody Elias knew by heart. "You have woven our fates together. I wish to speak with you alone." Elias nodded, his throat tight. He followed Kaelith to a quiet alcove, Torin trailing, but keeping his distance, ever the loyal guard. The alcove's walls glowed faintly, casting a warm light. Kaelith sat on a curved bench, gesturing for Elias to join her. He did, clutching his journal like a lifeline. Kaelith spoke, and Elias translated silently to himself, her words rich with meaning. She says, "Your Earth has stories of unity, of heroes who bind their people. Tell me one, so I may carry it to my stars." Elias smiled, thinking of his ancestor, Dr. Mira Varn, whose notes had guided him. "There's an old Earth myth about a king named Arthur. He pulled a sword from a stone, proving he was worthy to lead. But his real strength was his round table, where knights from all lands sat as equals. It wasn't perfect, but it showed that unity, even when messy, can change the world." Kaelith's lips curved in a rare, genuine smile. "A table of equals," she repeated in Zorathian, her voice soft. "Your Arthur would understand our alliance. We, too, are imperfect but bound by purpose." She reached into her robe and produced a small, crystalline orb, its surface etched with Zorathian runes. It pulsed with a gentle light, warm in her hands. "This is a memory stone," she said, placing it in Elias's palm. "It holds the voices of my people, their stories. Keep it, Elias Varn, as a bridge between our worlds." Elias's eyes widened, his fingers curling around the orb. Thank you, Empress. This means more than I can say." Kaelith inclined her head. "The thanks are mine. You have preserved our voice and given us a future." Torin, leaning against the alcove's entrance, cleared his throat. "All right, Doc, don't get too misty-eyed. That stone's cool, but you're going to be the galaxy's most famous nerd now. Better practice your speech for the holo cameras." Elias chuckled, the tension easing. "Famous? I'd rather hide in an archive. You deal with the cameras, Torin." Torin grinned, pointing a finger. "Deal. But only if you buy the first round of drinks when we're back on Earth. Galactic heroes don't drink alone." Kaelith rose, her gaze sweeping over them both. She spoke once more, and Elias translated, his voice steady. She says, "May your Earth and my Zorath forever share the stars." As Kaelith returned to the command center, Elias looked at the memory stone, its light reflecting in his eyes. He'd started this journey as a reluctant scholar, dragged from his quiet life to face a galaxy in crisis. Now he was a bridge, a voice for unity. The Voidborn seal would hold for now, but the Alliance's work was far from over. Elias slipped the stone into his pocket, a reminder of the stories he'd carry forward. Torin nudged him, nodding toward the bustling delegates. Ready to keep saving the galaxy, Chief, Envoy? Elias smiled, his heart lighter than it had been in weeks. Yeah, he said. Let's keep the stars talking.